All right. Thank you all for joining us for our pre-screening conversation about AI and its impact on storytelling. I'm Zuri Obi, Film and Conference Programmer at New Orleans Film Society, and I'm joined by Erik Weaver, who I would let introduce themselves. But Erik Weaver is working with next generation technology at USC, and you'll tell us more about that. But before we begin, I'd like to thank Science on Screen, an initiative of the Coolidge Corner Theater, with major support from the Alfred Sloan Foundation. Thank y'all so much for the support and making this coded bias screening happen, and also making this conversation with Erik happen. Erik, can you introduce yourself? What's your name and what's your background in AI?
Sure. My name's Erik Weaver. I work for the ETC. It's a 30-year-old nonprofit think tank based out of USC's film school. We were founded at the behest of George Lucas. And Lucas saw a lot of change in the industry. And so we thought it was important for the major studios to come together and look at change as a community. So our organization created things like DCI, or digital cinema, or the DCP package, basically, IMF, or interoperable master format, and several other things. So I report directly to a board, which includes the CTO of Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, Sony, and Epic Games. And I just get to look at the future, what's coming around the corner. And in this, I began about 10 years ago a grant for an individual of diversity who's graduated with a master's from USC to let them make a film that they wanted to make. And so I get the privilege of, on an annual basis, of awarding this grant and guiding somebody through this whole process. So we get to then basically take the technology that's at the forefront and play with it all. We have projects like Fathead, which was amazing, won a bunch of awards, which we shot on the Amazon LED stage, or ICVFX as it's known. And I just finished shooting Europa on the Sony Stage 7, which is also an LED stage. And now I'm getting a little bit more into straight up AI in production. I'm working on a piece right now called Chickaboom with the amazing writer-director C. Craig Patterson. And we're looking at how to empower the creative along the process as opposed to labor replacement.
Nice. And we know that CK is actually in New Orleans or local, right? But we'll get into the project. So really happy that you're here with us to have this conversation. You've been in AI for a minute, and I know this is like something that's more in vogue now. So a lot of folks are anxious and excited about the technology, and just really curious about the different ways that we can use AI in storytelling and the creative process. But before we get in, though, let's have a working definition, because there's so many things out there in terms of what is AI or what is deep fake. Let's talk about generative AI specifically. Can you just give us like a just a general working definition of what generative AI is, and how it can be used in the creative process to help empower us as artists?
So when I look at the process, I see there's really kind of two major aspects. There's generative and there's basically utility AI. And these are kind of two different things. Generative, something is going to be bringing about images or moving images based on usually text or words or prompts as we know them. So you can create things. Now, please don't want to diminish this thought. There is an absolute beauty and language to the poetry of prompts in all of this. So it is not something as simple as it may be thought of. You actually have to learn how to do something like this, and not necessarily from a technical standpoint, but from a historical and a film background standpoint. You need to know what films you liked, what lenses, what lighting. You need to know styles. You need to know intent if you're actually going to get something useful out of a generative post. On the opposite side, utility is something that's supporting someone, that's making things that will help them, usually a lot in the technical processes behind the scenes. A lot of computer vision stuff is coming out of that. So computer vision is, how does a computer understand what a chair is? How can it potentially use something like NOFS or neural radiance fields or Gaussian splats to recreate environments from photographs in a much faster way than traditional photogrammetry?
Mhm.
So that's kind of a quick overview there. I might have gone a little askew to just
No,
the
no, no.
definition.
No, that's perfect because a lot of people like think that okay, now that AI is here, they're going to take over the creative jobs, and all you have to do is just say a couple words, and these amazing scenes will come out. But what you're expressing to us is that it's actually it's like an additive skill that you need now, not something that it's taking away, and that we need to be able to communicate more effectively our ideas in terms of what we're thinking of, right? So the like you said, the poetry of prompt, really understanding that language. Yeah, and you were
Yeah,
showing
and my
us.
friend C. Craig Patterson, who again I said is from the Seventh Ward, he basically said the furthest distance to a film being made is his mind to that image and that
Yeah.
look or that likeness. And
Mm-hmm.
so he spends hours and hours working on some of these things. Like I said, in his poetry, learning this poetry of prompts, he'll go upwards of 100, almost 200 prompts sometimes to get exactly what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm. Well, so if you can and if you will, because the next question is how can filmmakers use AI to help them ideate, help them create, and help them, get through, I guess, the pre-production process or any process really. But what we're going to see is CK's pre-production process, correct? For Chickaboom,
Yeah,
and
so I'm going to give an example here. This is the piece that we're working on right now. So this is an animation piece, and I could talk about live action film as well. But what you're looking at here is a pipeline. And the pipeline is this is how the major components of building an animation piece work. So now we
mm,
have to take each of these particular pieces and say, what tools are evolving and how can they help? And I'll get a little bit more into some concept art a little bit in a sec, but things like Dash is procedural generation. So that's basically an AI client building an environment, right?
mm,
Automatically. Um, and so then you go in and it builds it, and then you're like, I don't like that tree. I don't like this. I'll move that. I want something else here. How do you use the next generation things like Move.ai for mocap in this
mm,
situation?
mm,
How do you do crowd simulation? That's a very expensive component within animation and rendering. And so let me show you a little bit more on the creative side. I'm going to scroll down to thing. So for example, when C. Craig was trying to find his chica in this, so the story is about a 9-year-old girl who wants to be a magician like her father is. And so basically, he went through 1,000 different images before he got to the one he likes, right?
mm,
And the
mm,
next question is going to say, well, you can't copyright AI. Of course, you cannot. But this is just about understanding what his vision is, who
mm,
that little girl is in his mind's eye, right? So then we take that, and now you kind of see it up in the upper corner, but now we come and we have to manually hand draw. So we're still hand drawing everything, expression seeds to get that look and that feel of that character. And so this is kind of the way things are going to move forward there. And then finally he finds this is what my chick is going to be like.
mm,
And he goes in and he starts doing some customization, right? He's like, oh, I need to now change the hair. I like a little bit more of this, and I want a chipped tooth. And he's got to create a three-dimensional model here as well. And then we bring in people to start doing things like costume design. So we have the wonderful Yara, who is voiceover for this character. And then for the father, we have David Diggs of Hamilton and Snowpiercer. And it's a lot of fun because then they get to play these live action characters. So we did within 4 days, we did a bunch of rigging to these characters. And when they did their mocap session, they could see it live
mm,
right there. And I can send you a clip here. I don't have it on this, but they could see it live and they could see how their characters interacted in the scene, right?
mm,
So
mm,
this is just kind of one example of where the director or the creative might be using something like this. On the back end, on the technology side, you could see all those other tools that I'm using, or the VFX world, or other components or animation people are using. So we're just finding those things that make life a little easier, you know,
mm. Yeah.
along the
So
path.
is this Is this something that the director's doing on their own, or is there a specialist that's working with them? Or because I want to know how empowered is the creative to directly work with some of the software, or do they still have to go to an intermediary?
So C. Craig's absolutely wonderful. He was able to pick it up really quickly. He went
Mhm.
and he does it all himself. It's all his mind's eye. We do have access to some of the top experts in the country on some of this stuff, so I do get to work with people, but he's not needed any help or assistance. He was able to just pick everything up himself. It is a learning curve. It will take you a little bit of time, but you just got to sit and have fun and play with it, and
Mhm.
just get creative. And it just allows him to iterate and do more in less time. So as I mentioned to you, basically AI is a little bit like a hammer, and a hammer doesn't build a house. The person holding a hammer builds a house. It's simply a tool, and it's a tool that, as you see, I know there's a bunch of film festivals that are beginning to show a bunch of things. You still need that creative in control of the process, that is defining the story, that is writing the nuance and the specialty of it, the thing that makes it unique and original. And again, that's the creator. That's the person with the wielding the hammer.
Mhm.
And I still think that it is absolutely going to be a creative's world, but it's not going to be AI that's taking anyone's job. The famous quote says, it's somebody using AI that might be taking your job, just because they can do things more efficiently and
Mhm.
create that special look and feel in a way that's really been tough before. There's things like tools like a lot of people will use certain things to describe their film, like, oh, it's a little bit like Godfather, but then we have this or that. And that's just kind of like what this is doing, but it's really bringing your vision to the forefront.
Mhm. I think it's the age of the film auteur, right? It's coming back in terms of just having more access and tools at your ready, and some jobs might be affected, but I think ultimately the
Yeah.
net impact is that the creative will have more access to their vision and the tools to express that. Whereas, money would be an issue, or, even just the skills and expertise. So that feels exciting, but, I feel like it's a similar anxiety when film moved from
Yes.
film to
Film to
digital.
digital.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And some people weren't comfortable with that transition. But what's interesting is where digital is now. Like when we first transitioned to digital, it was pretty naive and early stage, but now it can do crazy things. It's amazing. And even the people who are doing film are basically scanning that film and then digitally playing with it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that's just more of a, film noir kind of, I love this and I have enough authority to buy this film kind of thing. But
Yeah. Yeah. So like the last question, and I know we kind of touched on this because this is like what everybody's like, oh my God, they're gonna take our jobs, whatever. Will AI be this creative beast of a filmmaker in the future? Right. That's what people
so
want to
again,
know.
I think I kind of answered that with it's a hammer. And I,
Yeah.
I think that yes. Is there going to be an attempt to buy things like Sora to create homogenized food product? Possibly. But again, you still have to wield that tool. Somebody is wielding the tool. AI doesn't have a soul. And when you look at any of this stuff with especially simple prompts, you can feel the soulless nature of the
Mhm.
content.
Yeah. We still
There
need the
is a
humans.
part of us that we have to give to it that has that special bit of life.
Mhm.
And you've
Mhm.
got to breathe that life into it yourself as a
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah,
So,
I will say as a programmer, we've had a couple submissions that were just purely quote unquote AI created, and we were just like, oh my goodness, like and like any technology that's new and emerging, you get a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say garbage,
yeah.
but you get a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And I think what is exciting as a programmer is that the more crowded the space gets with stories, just in general, you're able to kind of identify the soul a little bit more readily because you're having all of these like AI created images or just like soulless images. But I think that it really pushes folks and artists to tap into the soul and spirit of storytelling and artistry that some folks are probably not thinking AI will force us to do, right? It's not the opposite. But yeah, sounds exciting. But we'll see what's coming up in the forefront. And so when is CK's film? When is Chicka Boom coming out? I know it's
So
very early.
it's CK Patterson, C.
CK
Craig
Patterson.
Patterson. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
That one we're still working on. We've got all the primary mocap and everything done. But we have a little bit of a Fantasia problem, and the Fantasia problem is that animation's different than live action, in which you really just need a lot of cash to have animators finish the final image, right? And
Yeah.
so we either have to beg, borrow, and steal cycles off of folks, or we do. So we're shooting for Annecy, so we're trying to target January of next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
But
When
Fathead is out if you want to see some of his prior work, which is pretty cool.
Fathead,
Fathead,
FATHAD. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
I'll,
Yeah. And
I'll
I
send
think
links.
please send some links, and if we are able to share, we will definitely do that. But I'm very excited to see this film come out, and I think a lot of things with new emerging technologies is that again it removes barriers for a lot of
Yeah.
filmmakers and artists, and so I'm really excited to see a Black female character being generated in these AI spaces, and it's just something that really lends to the narrative justice bend. So never thought that AI would be an agent of narrative justice, but this is something that is definitely coming to the fore, and very excited to welcome this film and just to see it.
So that's the other thing that's really exciting. This is a brave new world. Everything's new to everyone. So there's not this established hierarchy and control of I'm an expert and I'm the person. This is an opportunity for anybody to jump in and learn now. It's
Yeah,
brand new,
yeah,
and in the next, I would say 9 to 18 months, this is really going to take off. It's going to get a little crazy, and it's your opportunity to become an expert all of a sudden out of nowhere because there are no experts, or there are so few out there that it's really someone who just learned it 6 months ago, you know?
yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of folks, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, are experiencing some downtime in set works and
Yeah,
production time. So now is a good time to kind of like learn a
yeah.
new software and kind of tool up your resume and come back when things are a little more settled with some new skills. So yeah, this is exciting, at least to me. A lot of anxiety, but also exciting, like you said, because no one is the expert, and you're able to kind of remove that barrier and get straight to the talent of storytelling and not the mechanics of it. So yeah,
Yeah,
really
it does
excited.
democratize storytelling to some extent. Like right now, we're on Europa. We have a whole bunch of VFX shots, and we're like, we might have to use some AI to do some of these things, just because I can't afford it. Because I do these shorts in
Mhm.
18 minutes, and I don't have a $500,000 extra laying around to do, VFX cleanup and work. And so now it's going to be optional to so many more people that it wasn't before.
Yeah. And then the younger generation, geez, like my 3-year-old niece is just like on an iPad, just doing crazy things. It's just, yeah. It's gonna be really weird, but exciting to witness the growth of this new technology. And just to understand how storytelling is going to be more accessible and expensive in the future. Yeah.
And I guess the last thing I might leave you with is that what's sad is it's a little bit like kind of the story of Oppenheimer. We've let a cat out of the bag. And as much as we'd love to put that cat back in the bag, we can't.
Mhm.
So you can either move forward, or you don't have to, but it's not something we can stop as much as we some people might want to.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, we can't
so
stop, but definitely educating ourselves and empowering ourselves will help us not control,
empowering
but but
yourself.
but not and not even control, because I think that's the human tendency, is to try to control, but to coalesce our existence with this new technology in a way that is expansive and not so alarmist in a way, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Erik, thank you so much for again taking time out of your busy day to have this conversation. We really appreciate you. Hopefully we can have you come for New Orleans Film Society and talk more about this, because this is something that a lot of folks would love to learn about. But yeah,
I live in Algiers Point, and I'm often at the CAC, so love to help or be around in any way if possible.
we're neighbors. So we're definitely going to have you come by and figure out how to have this conversation for our in-person programming. But wanted to thank you again. And yeah, y'all please enjoy Coded Bias, and we'll see you soon.